Hello everyone, my name's Chris and welcome to my highly sophisticated lens testing laboratory, also known as my man cave. It's a real mess at the moment, to be honest, which is why I've made it out of focus. So congratulations, you have bought a Sony camera, and because of its smaller APS-C sized sensor rather than a full frame sensor, it was good value for money, and the camera itself and its lenses that work with it can be lovely and small too. It came with a little 16 to 50mm zoomable kit lens like this one, or something similar, which is nice and small, but what's the next step from there? What lenses are out there which could take your Sony photography game to the next level? Well, I have good news for you. Because the Sony E-mount is an open system, which has been around for a long time now, there are a plethora of lens options for you to upgrade to. So today I want to show you some of the lenses I recommend most often. So let's go on a whistle-stop tour of 4 different directions you could go in upgrading your camera's kit lens. By the way, you can find links to full reviews of each of these camera lenses down in the description below. Firstly, why upgrade in the first place? It could be that you don't really need to. A little zoomable kit lens like that Sony 16 to 50mm that I mentioned is portable, lightweight, and can be reasonably sharp when you stop down its aperture to f8 or so, which does make it useful for landscape or cityscape photography. However, Sony's 16 to 50mm lens is not famous for being particularly sharp overall, particularly in its image corners, and that 16 to 50mm zoom range, while offering you quite a nice wide angle, doesn't zoom in very far at all. So your first avenue might be to increase your zoom range with a super zoom lens. You have a few options from Sony themselves here. First, they do make an old 18 to 200mm lens which you could go for, but it's a very old model and I've heard that its optical compromises are a bit much. It's not very sharp. Instead, consider the reasonably good and surprisingly small sized Sony E18 to 135mm. Its image quality is sharp enough for most users, but it gives you a lovely long zoom range in a compact little lens body, which makes it a good compromise option. For people interested in video work, Sony also make an 18 to 105mm f4 power zoom lens. Now that is pretty cool and fun to use and handle, although again, it does have 1 or 2 image quality problems and it's certainly expensive. If you want an extreme zoom range, then Tamron make a couple of decent options for you. An 18 to 200mm lens, which is a little older now but still considered to be fairly good, and a newer 18 to 300mm lens. Now that 18 to 300 would be the most tempting for me. It's not a cheap lens by any means, but that telephoto reach is incredible. Be warned though, the longer the zoom range, the more compromises have to be made on image quality. Again, it does not have the sharpest image corners, and when you zoom all the way in, its images do get a bit softer. By the way, if it is extra zoom range that you're looking for, then I do have to say you should avoid the expensive and rather terrible Sony Zeiss 16 to 70mm f4 lens. If you just take a look at my review of it, you'll find out why. Alright, that's your first avenue, increasing your zoom range. Your second avenue is to upgrade to a lens that has a brighter maximum aperture, which means it can let in more light for shooting indoors and in darker situations, and get you more out of focus backgrounds for a beautiful 3D effect. And you have a few nice options here too, 3 competing lenses. The Sigma 18 to 50mm f2.8 with its fantastically small size and lightweight, decent image quality and low price. The Sony 16 to 55mm f2.8 with its incredible sharpness but somewhat exorbitant price tag. And finally, the Tamron 17 to 70mm f2.8 with its excellent zoom range and also good image quality. Each one of those lenses has a bright maximum aperture of f2.8 throughout their entire zoom range, meaning they let in far more light than your typical kit lens, and they can be useful for portrait photography too when you zoom in. Each of these lenses has very good to excellent image quality. My personal favourite of them is the Tamron lens. I love that great zoom range, and it's the only lens out of these three with its own image stabilization built in. So if your camera does not have in-body image stabilization, then this is probably the lens for you. The Sony lens I mentioned is incredibly sharp but also crazy expensive, and that Sigma lens, it represents the best value for money. It's such a good price, and its small size makes it really handy and portable. A lovely little lens. Okay, that was your second avenue. Your third option is to get a prime lens. Prime lenses do not zoom in and out. They are stuck, giving you just one field of view, so choose wisely. But they can often be smaller than a zoom lens with sharper image quality and, more importantly, a nice bright maximum aperture, say f2 or even f1.8 or f1.4. That means they let in lots of light to your camera, make it much easier to shoot in darker situations and much better for getting, as I mentioned before, out of focus backgrounds in your images. Nice. There are a huge number of different prime lenses available on Sony E-mount. If I were to take you through them all, then we would be here for days. They are really popular for photographers who want to get a bit more creative. I'll show you just a few now that are particularly good value for money. A very old but surprisingly good option is the Sony E50mm f1.8 OSS. Not only can it get you beautiful portrait and subject pictures with lovely out-of-focus backgrounds, but it's also image stabilized, making it fantastically easy to use, even for beginners. And in my tests, well, I was blown away by how sharp it is, even at that maximum aperture of f1.8, and it's good value for money too, so that is one of my top picks. If you're on a very low budget, then a similar lens is the Yongnuo 50mm f1.8, which is only about $120 and reasonably sharp, but that lens does not feature image stabilization. If you want to go tiny, then you might be able to find some of Sony's old pancake lenses over on eBay for a low price. They will make your camera so small it could fit in your pocket. But be warned, they are not very sharp lenses in their image corners. Both Viltrox and Sigma make third-party autofocus lenses as well for Sony cameras, all with extremely bright maximum apertures of f1.4, making them really creative yet affordable lenses. Sigma have their 16, 30 and 56mm lenses, and the 16 and 56mm lenses are particularly sharp with excellent build quality. Viltrox make autofocus 23, 33 and 56mm f1.4 lenses too. They are a little less expensive than the Sigma lenses I mentioned, but not quite as sharp either. Viltrox and Samyang also both make some very nice portrait lenses for the Sony system, with their respective 85mm f1.8 and 75mm f1.8 lenses, offering great image quality at a reasonable price for anyone who wants a really tight image. So you see what I mean here? There are lots of lens options for you on the Sony system, including a whole bunch more prime lenses that I haven't even covered here. You can find out more about them on my channel. And if you're really looking to save money, then there are also a lot of manual focus lenses out there from China, all of which are cheap, but also of kind of mixed quality. I always state at the beginning of my lens reviews whether or not a particular lens is available on Sony E-mount, but most of the cheap manual focus lenses out there are. Well, that was your third avenue, prime lenses. The final option for you, I think, is to grab an ultra-wide angle lens to complement your kit lens. These lenses go much wider than your everyday kit lens, making them enormously fun to use. Sony don't really make a low-budget ultra-wide-angle lens of their own. They only have their rather expensive 10 to 18mm f4. But again, third-party manufacturers are coming to the rescue. Tamron make a very nice quality 11 to 20mm f2.8 lens. It is rather expensive too, but it does offer a great zoom range and a bright maximum aperture. Samyang make a very nice and very popular 12mm f2 lens, which combines an ultra-wide angle with a very bright aperture. Some people particularly enjoy using it for astrophotography, as it does let in so much light. On a Sony system, this lens comes in both autofocus and manual focus varieties. If you're looking for a really wide angle, then Chinese manufacturer Laowa make an awesome little 9mm f2 lens, well f2.8 rather. It has fantastic image quality, although the corners of your images look a little dark with this lens, and bear in mind it's manual focus only. And finally comes the Viltrox 13mm f1.4. Okay, right now it's not available on Sony cameras, only Fuji, but I think it's likely to make its way over sometime, so I'm hedging my bets and including it here because this is a great lens. Okay, it doesn't have the widest angle possible, but its maximum aperture of f1.4 is incredibly bright, giving you lots of creative opportunities. It's an autofocus lens and it is sharp, so that is one great option if it comes out on Sony, which I think and hope it will one day. So there you have it. You have an absolute smorgasbord of options for upgrading your Sony kit lens. The only limit is your imagination. Oh, and your budget, of course. Which of these 4 directions are you going to go in? Let me know in the description below, and see you next time.